Good afternoon. Good afternoon. A lovely, lovely afternoon in a little bit of a cold and sunny Botswana. And today we dive back into our very favorite topic on having a conversation on EdTech in Africa and how well we can transform education in Africa. In the studio, I'm joined by Mr. Daniel Misele, and I have Mr. Adibayo, all the way from Nigeria. We have our lovely guests that are still joining us. And from this point, we can delve into it and start off by just having that discussion that we love having quite often. We're obviously concerned with the plight of EdTech, bespoke education status in Africa. And we've realized there's so much potential and the ecosystem needs some support for us to scale up and get to a point where we can proudly say, we're changing the narrative. We were here, we made a difference, we did something. So I'll quickly get into introductions. Mr. Adibayo, would you please start? Introduce yourself to our guest. And I made the mistake of assuming our guests know me. My name is Miss Kim Sally Kimango. Some people call me by that name. I run education and all things edtech in sub-Saharan Africa. And within that, which is quite broad, I have my focus being in STEAM education, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. So we have Destination Imagination, which we've been running projects for quite some years, and we have Digital Africa. You're welcome. We want to have this as a conversation that we can share and look into what difference can we make. Mr. Adibayo, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ms. Kim. My name is Adebayo Alomaja. I based in Nigeria, the head of research and chief learning designer at ECDG. ECDG is an education consulting organization that uses research, technology, and networking to transform education in Africa. And we're working with K-12 specifically, and to ensure digital transformation and leveraging on technology to create authentic learning experiences and and helping schools to move away from the traditional into something that is more valuable as it relates with the society and the world at large. I'm excited to be here, Miss Kim. Thank you once again for having me. Okay, so I guess there's a bit of some technical glitch, and that's fine. Okay, yeah. So for all of our audience, thanks for joining. Thanks for blocking all this time to listen to us and what we have to say. Of course, about how EdTech is transforming education in Africa, looking at the future of learning, right? Because we need to always talk about the future. We need to always think about the future, right? What is possible, and how can we move from today, right? Into those possibilities. These are very, very critical conversations, right? One of the things that this conversion will do to you, right, is to help you to get more acquainted with what is possible, and then how practically we can begin to move from where we are right now to what is possible, right, to what is possible. Okay, yeah. So as we look at the future of learning, right, this is the African continent. We know some things are really the realities right now, but then how do we practically move right from where we are right into the realm of
Moving
new
spaces.
possibilities, right? that's an important thing that we're going to be looking at in this conversation. Right, Miss Kim is back. Right. Hi, Miss Kim. Can you hear me? Hi, Miss Kim. Can you hear me?
This is when we say welcome to Africa. Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Sure, I can hear you too.
So you can't hear me?
I can hear you. I can.
Yeah, well, it's time. This is when we say, yes, indeed, we invite. We love it. We love Africa with all the challenges we encounter. And thank you so much, Eddie Bio. And let's just agree now as we onboard our speakers. I hope you managed, Daniel, to add Robert. And we have Gladys as well. If I am booted again, thank you. Just hold fort and carry on the discussion. The
Sure.
conversation just has to go on. Yes. Daniel, you're on board now. So Daniel, let's have you introduce yourself as we see how we're going to resolve the tech issues for us to get our speakers on board. Welcome, Daniel. I'm not sure he can hear me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can
Sure.
you hear me, Daniel?
I don't think Daniel is in yet.
I think, oh, sorry. So I'm what they like calling the village girl in the organization. I enjoy working with this team of vibrant and young people. Daniel, let's have you introduce yourself.
Yes, hello everyone. I am Daniel Misali, Destination Imagination Botswana. I'm happy to be here this
So,
afternoon. Thank you.
thank you, Daniel. Great to have you on board. Yes. So, we want to have a candid conversation and discuss the status of EdTech. But as we all know it, we long got tired of discussing our challenges because we know them, and we want to discuss solutions. We want to discuss solutions. This is a conversation that will carry on, and we're going to have this conversation every Tuesday, 3 p.m. South Africa time. And thank you so much to our listeners. You're welcome on board. We're going to have 45 minutes of a great conversation with our awesome speakers, and then we'll have 15 minutes of Q&A. So you can post your questions. We may not be able to have everybody get on board and ask their questions, but please, if you can post your questions, we will get you into the room. And we also, when we see it on the comment section, we'll get back to you and respond to your question. So we have speakers who have been in EdTech space, and we're trying to bring in the blend where we can be able to understand where we're going wrong as a continent. Are we doing enough? What can we learn from the global south? What is it that, what brings the disconnect that our government spend a lot of money, talk about Cape to Cairo? Most countries in Africa, the second biggest budget goes to education. Yet we have the highest level of unemployed youth. So we need to address that question. We need to look into what is not working. Is it the curriculums we're setting? Do we need to go back and train our educators? Is it that we're still working on colonial curriculum that is not working anymore? Where's the money going? How do we make sure we resolve the issue of unemployment within the continent? So I want us to have this as a very open conversation and see this is going to keep on happening. We obviously don't claim to have all the solutions, but we know if we engage more experts and thought leaders in this space, we'll come up with something that makes sense. So, Ajibayo, you've been in this space for quite some years, and you are one of the Africans that are trailblazing in this space. You're doing a lot of disruption in your corner in Nigeria, and I know your work spreads across the continent. Let's start with you giving us your views. Where is EdTech in Africa, and what can we do to get to where we want to be?
Yeah, thank you once again, Miss Kim. Yeah, so where is EdTech in Africa, and how can we get to where we are supposed to be? So I think that looking at Africa generally, right? We've seen a level of presence, right? We've seen a level of presence talking about EdTech in Africa, West Africa, South Africa. We talk about the big fours, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and I think Egypt, right? The countries that are supposed to enjoy the highest level of investment in, in tech, and also including EdTech as it were, right? So we've seen that, and truly there's a level of presence, right? But then we see again that there's a level of divide. While we have a level of presence talking about edtech, we also have a level of divide, talking about the whole zones, right? But what we see again is the fact that there is an issue of slowness, in embracing technology. We've also seen that. And when we say technology, it's not necessarily something, it's not necessarily big tech or high tech. No, no, no. So we know that it is yet possible to have what is small, right? And gradually moving the needle in terms of experiences, because what we want to do is we want to see how technology, right, can actually change the experience, right? Can actually bring an experience that helps to prepare our kids, right, for the current challenges, and the future and the emerging challenges. So I think I'll start on that note. There's a level of presence. There's also a level of divide, right? And thirdly, there's a level of slowness, in being willing to integrate quickly.
Thank you, Adibayo. Very well said. Very well said. So, what we call the digital divide, do you feel it's getting wider and wider, or are we resolving that? And especially, I think you and I, mostly work with marginalized communities. Are we making progress in that space?
Yeah, yeah. So I think that there's a level of progress there. I know that what will solve that problem, right, is networking, right? Well, that's why I like to talk about networking a lot, right? So if this thing is going to spread so fast, we have to break into networking, and that's one of the purposes of this meeting. We're trying to see how we can pull in many people, just to see what is possible. I always say that it's very important that you are seeing what is possible from time to time, so that you can get inspired, so that you can be inspired to replicate, such kind of things, right? So from what I see, especially on a platform like LinkedIn and teachers coming around, I see a level of growth there. But again, there's still a level of slowness in terms of pace. It's not where it should be. It's not where it should be. I think that it's very important to emphasize the importance of networking, even in the education space, in the tech space, even now, and as regards integration, right? We need to do more in that regard. We need to, we are too separated. So the Western Africa, the Southern Africa, the Eastern, we are too separated from, from one another, right? So what's going to bridge that gap and put us in a place where whatever is happening somewhere is able to happen, in another hemisphere in a short while, and not, in such a very elongated manner, is, when we keep ourselves so close, when we're networking, and when we're having these kind of conversations, frequently, like we see right now.
Thank you. Indeed, indeed. And yes, we can say there's progress being made. And as for you, Daniel, do you really think we're making progress? And what more do you think we can do to get Africa to where, as we love saying it, creating the Africa we want? Diversity and inclusion.
Yeah. So basically, yeah. So with regards to that, I think that there's been um, a visible progress that has been made, and a lot of developments are underway. because when we talk about educational technology, it talks about the drive that we want to see the world take today and Africa as a whole. Because when you look at the state at which Africa is being portrayed to the world, there are lots of there are a lot of hindrances, there are a lot of setbacks and the like. So, but with the concept of EdTech, I believe it's going to be a vast investment in Africa, which will enable the growth and the development of the continent at large, and even for the young and upcoming generation. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Yes. Having worked extensively with various other stakeholders, I can't emphasize more on the need for us to collaborate and obviously have the government on board, have the private sector, and as well civil societies. And this is a call that we constantly emphasize on. We need to have more of these engagements. We need to have more conversations, and we need to create, it's always coined that Ubuntu spirit, that Harambe spirit of where building bridges, working together, supporting each other, and obviously looking at practices, what has worked in a specific country and what could work in this other given country. We obviously understand Africa is a huge continent with different challenges in different parts of Africa. And infrastructure obviously has been quite an issue. But we're making progress and we're getting there. I'd like to get views from Mr. Adibayo. Recently, with disruption of EdTech, we've seen countries in Africa get into the introduction of first sorting out their infrastructure, which obviously, when you talk about that, we're looking at, we still have schools with no electricity. We still have schools with no gadgets. If you have no electricity, then it's difficult for you to get access to laptops, iPads, internet. What is your advice to our policymakers? How do you think we can tackle that? And what should be our way forward?
Hmm. Advice to policymakers. That's that.
You know, that's
Well,
what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah. I know. While I know that the challenge we have on the African continent is going to require a multi-dimensional approach to solving it. Like some people say, we need to go bottom up and top to bottom. Uh, if I know that they know what to do. Let me start by saying that they know what to do. I know when corruption goes up, innovation goes down. They're always on two sides. And when corruption goes down, innovation goes up. We know that the countries that have the best education systems, if you place them, if you look at them on the corruption index, there's this report they share every year that speaks to where countries are with respect to corruption, right? So you'll find the countries with the best education systems on the lower side of that report, and the countries with the bad education system, so to say, you find them on top of that report, right? So I think it's very clear there has to be a lot of investment, and of course that has to be done strategically to ensure that it spreads across. But I'm really more interested in what we can do bottom to top. While we know that top to bottom is not there's a lot of problem right there, right? But we know that bottom to top is where we can begin to do a lot of things, so that we can really support what our policymakers will do actually. Because of course, if you look at how far we have come, and in terms of pace of response, it's quite problematic, right? So I think we should look at bottom to top more.
Yeah, absolutely. And case in point, we have seen, Daniel, your country, Sierra Leone, has just gone through elections. And I think you have one of the most active ministers
Yeah.
of education, right? So from that policy
Yes,
level,
yes.
I'm sure you're sitting on that table. You're one of the leaders. Where are we at EdTech in Africa, and what solutions are policymakers are they looking at bringing on board?
Yeah, so basically, I believe with
That's your
with
question,
the
Daniel.
intervention of, you know, yes. So basically, I believe with the intervention of some of these stakeholders to, it's just about having the interest in these investments, which will basically polish and shape, the national, target when it comes to education, not only education, but talking about this technology aspect. So basically, before now, uh, well, a lot of people have less idea about the STEAM education, and as well, because it has just been putting the pen to the paper, putting the chalk to the board. That's just a common way of grabbing
Yes.
knowledge in Africa, more so with where I come from. So I believe with the intervention of these stakeholders in the STEM education, in the technological field, I believe it's going to shape the world. It's going to shape the continent as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I can see you're welcome. We have Robert Grover. I'm not sure what's happening. We're not able to add him. He's one of our speakers. Daniel, our tech person, and Mr. Adibayo, over to you. We still say tech is for guys. I'm just going to sit here and wait for magic to happen from Mr. Adibayo and Mr. Daniel. See how you can add. We have Robert. And we also have Gladys. They're all joining us from USA, and they have a lot of solutions and sort of discussions to bring on board on their best practices. What have they done? How are they tackling the EdTech issues or just literally education? Taking into perspective that we
Did
have
you did
what
you send
others
them
have
the link?
done, and they know what is working and what they like. We don't. Somebody should mute. I think I have the ability to mute you. Yeah. It's noisy. Someone's background is a bit noisy. And I am excited to see we have Juma saying Jambo from Tanzania. Juma, you're very welcome. Tanzania is my other home that I truly love, and I do a lot of work in Tanzania. We have Alexander from Canada. You're most welcome. We have Marjorie. Marjorie has been a great supporter of what Editor Africa does in Africa. She's actually the person who meets our partners and gets grants for us. And she's joining us from Belize. When is the last time you saw someone from Belize in Central America? And then we have Doreen Chemueno. Welcome, Doreen. And joining us from Kenya, we have Steve Rohio. And Steve has a question, which is good for you, Mr. Adibayo. How do we influence the policymakers? And obviously, Daniel, I'm sure you have answers to that. How do we influence policymakers in Africa? We know, as Adebayo says it, from bottom to up, there are constant challenges that we need to factor and see how to resolve them. Welcome, Nabulelo Vuiswa from South Africa. Most welcome. Dr. Ayu. Dr. Ayu, we actually lined up to host you in one of our upcoming sessions. A very dynamic person, all the way from Nigeria, and I think currently based in USA. You're doing a lot of work in education space, and would love to hear more from you. Welcome, Letebele. That's our home girl right here in Botswana. So let's answer that question on policymakers. Steve Rohio wants to know, Mr. Adibayo, how do we influence the policymakers?
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, so I think it depends on the climb. So it depends on the climb. If we're going to influence, yeah, it depends on the climb. So we have some policy make. We have certain climbs where you have, there's a level of openness, and and the current issues, the current challenges faced in those kind of countries, will allow that there's a level of partnership. There's the possibility of partnership, to really make things happen and to drive things really. We know, so in those kind of climb, it's quite easy, right? So some group of people can just go and say, hey, we want to meet this person. There's a level of freedom and openness. You can approach, you can discuss, you can share things like that, and say, hey, we need to move things forward. What can you do? How can you help us out? There are climbs where such kind of approach can really work, right? So, but there are also other climbs where that possibility is not there. It's not there, and so we have to now think about how do we yet solve the problem, knowing that the current realities facing the economy, won't support that kind of partnership. How do we then solve the problem? So like I said, it's relative. It depends on on the client in question, right? And what's possible. So you're dealing with a country right now. There's a lot of civic unrest, and so many things are happening, and you don't want to talk about that kind of thing. You look at what has happened in the space of time and all of that. So I think it depends on the client. And then so that we are not waiting for too long, I also think that it's important to consider alternative options when it comes to doing things and getting things done. I mean, destination imagination. I know you shared with me some partnerships that have been able to support what you are doing, which didn't really come from the policymakers, so to say, but from some other channels that have been able to move things forward to a considerable level. So I think we are not handicapped. I think we have options and we can move this forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love what you say, Adibayo, and more especially just having the can-do attitude. And a case in point where we've done a lot of work in marginalized communities, where you get into a village, there's no electricity. We have cases in Africa. I'm sure you've all heard or witnessed cases in Africa where we don't even have classrooms, just 4 walls. Kids do their work under the tree. And that attitude, which we saw that within COVID, that we didn't just stay in our home saying, this is it, we're done, we're doomed. We all looked for solutions. We all came up with so many innovative ways of making sure that education continues. It was difficult, of course. We're still going through that. We're still trying to recover what we lost in the education space. But I can't emphasize more on just having that can do attitude and just forging forward and coming up with solutions. Just ensuring that we keep on dealing with the huge gap that we have. So, a case in point, we have what we've done and what has worked, the best practices we have in Botswana, in South Africa, in Tanzania, in Kenya, in Ghana. And I would like again to get it from Adibayo. What would you look at as your best practices, looking at your background, where you're coming from, Nigeria, when it comes to positioning EdTech? I have seen, we've had situations where just getting teachers on the forefront, just getting them to understand that you can use this projector and you can be able to address thousands of kids. There are obviously limitations, not just within the infrastructure, but even just getting the teacher trained on how do I use technology, how do I integrate technology in my everyday class, in my session. And also knowing your passion for PBL, I call you the king of PBL in Africa, project-based learning, and the challenges you faced within your efforts trying to implement that.
Yeah. Thanks, Miss Kim. So again, looking at what is possible, I've learned, working with schools, consulting for schools, that it's quite important to first of all try to understand the culture that exists in every system. Every system has a culture, and like we say, culture will always eat strategy for breakfast anytime. If the culture issue is not first addressed, whatever it is you're bringing, whatever transformation you're trying to bring into the system, is not going to work. It's going to be frustrated,
Yeah.
right? So there has to be a culture shift. So this is going
Yeah.
to be a conversation with the leaders or with the senior officers in the system, right, to talk about digital transformation, because technology can disrupt your system if you don't
Yes.
bring it in. if you don't bring it in, if you don't integrate it correctly, it can cause more harm than good. That I've also seen too as well. It can cause more harm than good. So you want to bring in technology and you want to bring it, so you need to first create an atmosphere that's going to allow it to sit and that's going to allow it to really help. Because at the end of the day, it's supposed to help us, not to give us more headache, not to stress teachers the more, and it's supposed to bring in a level of relief. So that side is very important. To experience real digital transformation, there has to be a strategic roadmap that is established with the leaders of the senior officers in the system, talking about how we're going to move from A to B. And moving from A to B is not going to be something complex. Let's pick simple things in our system that we can change, and we're going to do it with this particular approach. From a project management approach, we're going to do it A to B in this period of time. We are considering the workforce because the people, the teachers, are going to be the ones to drive it. We're considering them, and we are not bringing in something big. So you want to go the project management way. We want to think in terms of sprints. We want to say you're going from, we know what's happening in the system. We're going to go from A to B and bring in technology to change this level of things, right? And we're going to carry everyone
Yes.
along, provide the training they need, provide the support they need, right? Both online and both physically, right? I've learned to that you don't want to do only online with teachers, especially in Africa. No, it has to be blended. They need to see you. You need to empathize with them. They need to see you. They need to feel your presence. They need to know that this is a relief for me. This is a big time support. That's just practically what I've discovered when it comes to integration. We need to think that way. We need to be more empathetic. We need to embrace design thinking in trying to bring technology into the system so that at the end of the day, technology does not end up disrupting our system. There are no same systems. I've learned that, Ms. Kim. I've learned that there are no same. If you bring this strategy to school A, don't try to take that same strategy to school B. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. We need to understand
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
peculiar challenges. We need to understand the peculiar challenges, understand the system, the culture that exists, and try to see how to properly bring in technology, strategically to ensure that there is movement that can be measured and evaluated from time to time, right? In ensuring that there is really a good digital transformation as it were, right? So yeah, let me stop there, so I don't talk for too long.
No, you've said something that I truly appreciate. Bringing the element of culture, and we have the queen of culture, disruption of culture in Africa, Miss Marjorie. I wish you could join us on this conversation. We'll try to have her on board next session. And truly, we've seen that. We've seen it, school A and school B. If kids are not getting to understand how we teach them, why don't we understand how kids want to be taught? And my biggest challenge, Mr. Adibayo, like you mentioned, the project-based learning. How do you see it possible for us to implement it with all the challenges we have in our education system? We're looking at shortage of teachers. We're looking at shortage of classrooms. How do we blend in that as we still look into, we need to educate this teacher on what that is, what does it mean? And is
Hmm,
that the solution we have?
hmm, hmm. Yeah, absolutely, Miss Kim. I know that today there are many things that technology can do for us that we are not allowing it to do yet. Right. So I tell
Yeah.
teachers, if technology can do it, don't do it. If technology can do it, don't do it. So it's just part of the process. So when we're having these conversations, these design conversations, there are certain tasks that are just repetitive. Teachers do it over and over and over and over and over again. These things are exhausting, right? So, and there are levels of technology, just as small as having a smartphone, can take care of a number of things like that, right? Oh, so I'm trying to speak to various cases now. So there are cases of, oh, teachers, we don't have laptops, and you've got just smartphones. That's fine. And there are cases where teachers have laptops here, oh, that's fine. Or the school, teachers don't have laptops, but the school has an ICT room that can be utilized, and then they've got some desktops there. Oh, why not? That's fine, right? That's fine. That's cool. But at the end of the day, basic things, Miss Kim, basic things like lesson notes and lesson plans. Let's even start from there. Let's even start from there. Basic things like that. That one gives teachers a lot of headache. It gives teachers a lot of headache, big
Let
time,
me
a lot of
ask
headache.
you. Yeah. So we have very, in some cases in Africa, we have very high profile teacher training colleges and professors who have gone to sophisticated universities. Why are we still struggling? Why should we still be having such challenges? So, are
Hmm.
you telling me, Mr. Adibaya, we have a teacher in class who doesn't know how to prepare a lesson plan?
Well, it appears that that's the case in some places. But then the point I'm trying to raise is that we can move basic things like a teacher having to sit down and pen and paper, write lesson plans and write several pages and do that every week. That thing is stressful. Teachers don't like it. I've never seen a teacher that likes it. I don't know if you have found one. I've never seen, right? So they don't like it, but they have to do it. They have to sit down and keep writing and writing. Why today it can be so easy for you to put your contents together, even with your smartphone. All right. You can create your Word document, or you can create your PDF files, or even just your slides. You can do that from your smartphone. So simple things like that, making that kind of bringing that kind of possibility, into the way things have been done. Right. So, and of course, as simple as that looks like, it's going to bring a level of relief, right? And of course, a level of transformation,
Yes,
because for the teachers, they can
absolutely.
spend less time in putting their lesson plans and putting their stuff together. It's just a digital template for the lesson plans that teachers need to just go every time. And all they are doing on the template is just filling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They don't have to write it over and over and over again. Now, these are things that are simple. They are not difficult in any way, right? As small as just either the teacher has a smartphone or the school has an ICT room. If the school has just only one computer in the ICT room, no problem, no problem. Every teacher will find a good time.
Yes.
We just need to think of how to move forward, all right, in spite of the challenges, right? So I've been in several cases like that. It's like, what's the way forward? There's always a way forward. We can move things forward in spite of the challenges.
My good question is this one. So, two things. We have the challenge of resources, and we also have the challenge of skills. Or skills you think we've made progress, what we don't have is the resources. Because even if I know what to do, but you can't present that laptop for me to use, how am I gonna? Yes, I might use paper, which, like you're saying, it takes a lot of time. So, are we having those two as our challenges, skills and resources, or we have the skills now? It is the resources.
Yeah, so I think it's dual. I think it's the both of them. I think it's dual. And one of the things that I've been talking about lately is the presence of L&D in K to 12. That's learning and development. Conventionally, every organization have what they call the L&D. It's like a school within the organization, right, that trains the personnel to be able to perform as expected. So the idea of L&D is to ensure that in an agile world where things are changing, where expectations are changing, where teams have to learn new things, right? So it's like a structural
Yeah.
provision that ensures that everyone on the team is able to learn it and learn it together, and the company can move forward, leveraging on the impact of the L&D, learning and development, right? So I think that right now
Yes.
we need to have that in
Yeah.
K to 12. We need to have every school needs to have a learning and development plan. Again and again, I always try to demystify these things and make it very simple. So somebody's not saying,
Yes.
why you L&D is too big, it's too huge. No, it's not. It's not. We don't have to always go the big way. I think, Miss Kim, one of the things we have learned in Africa, and that I've learned, in the African context, is the fact that we don't have to always go the big way. No, these big things can be simplified. They can be demystified
Yes.
to work in our context. For
Absolutely.
example, you
Yeah.
want to have an landing plan in your school context. What you want to do is to just basically identify all the skills and the competencies that your
Yes.
staff need, right, to perform as expected. And you want to create a
Yeah.
platform, just even as simple, let me not go advanced, just even as simple as a Google Drive, where a list of materials are there that addresses these things, right? That your teachers can just have access to right from their phone or from their laptop. Or you want to make it hybrid, you want to create a time every week where they come together and you are playing something, right? Those kind of simple approach, right? Just to ensure that there's an L&D that is structured,
Mm.
that contains and
Yes.
addresses everything that you see that is a required skill and the competencies that your teachers need to have in that particular kind of system, right? So that they are supported, so that they feel supported.
Yeah.
And of course, in putting this L&D together, you also want to ask your teachers too, which areas do you think, so that it's human centered and it's not just vague and it's actually accurate.
Yes. So you would strongly say this needs to be an ongoing sort of teacher development to keep
Absolutely.
on training them. We can't just rule out. Yes. And then obviously, especially in Africa, I've seen some parts of Africa where we have teachers in their 50s. So teachers in their 50s, that's a great talent we need to tap into. And we are launching a project that we are working with retired teachers. They have the skills. Teachers in their 60s, they have a lot of skills. They've been in the classroom for long. They have the experience. And how do we bring them up to speed with the latest tech tools that we want them to work with, that we want them to use? Thank you, Mr. Adibayo. That was quite insightful. I will do a shout out to our audience. And apologies, I'm only able to access what we have on LinkedIn. Unless Adibayo, you're able to access who we have on Facebook and on YouTube. Just know this is our, after quite some time, we've not gone back to doing live sessions. We've been doing a lot of LinkedIn Live, and I think that's where LinkedIn Audio. That is where we have a bigger audience. Welcome, Khalid Hamed. Thank you for your support. We appreciate that. Tatenda says, from South Africa, I've been doing a bit of research on the ICT integration being done by the education department in public schools here. And I've noticed that currently we're failing dismally in our implementation. Would love to hear more from you, Tatenda. I know South Africa was one of the first schools in Africa that introduced a tablet per child. I'm not sure if Adibayo, you were privy to that information. And I think that was 2017. There was a lot of work done. And obviously it has come with its own challenges, but this beauty you've learned. So I'm sure it's getting better and better. And we also have private sector in South Africa that's doing a lot of work. Your corporates are very supportive. Asene, welcome on board. How to change our paradigm for capacity development. Yes, that needs to be done. And as Adebayo, you were presenting, I felt like there's a lot of change that we need to do in our thinking. Besides the challenges we're encountering, are we ready? Are we ready for the change? We don't even want to bring the topic of artificial intelligence and how scary it's sounding in Africa. I'll just leave it as a topic for another day. So I think it has a lot to do with our mindset. Are we ready for this disruption? So if we're talking about AI and it's sort of, we're not even aware of what that is or what that means yet in Africa, because we're still at that level of discussing, do we have the infrastructure ready? But this is not something that we're going to put a pause and wait for the rest of the world to wait for us to catch up. So there's nothing like, yes, oh, Africa, this is where you are at, and these are the challenges we're facing. This is a wake-up call. We've got to move on. So yes, capacity development is very critical. Yes, Khalid Hamd, please, I have new projects will support for education technology. Please let me know how I can support you. Yes, Khalid, we're happy to have those kind of conversations. We work in collaboration with so many other experts in the industry. These issues can be solved by one or two organizations. We need a lot of these, and we've actually created a platform which is an ecosystem, which is for bringing the entire ecosystem of EdTech in Africa and sort of bring that collaboration. We don't need to keep on reinventing the wheel. You might have what I need, and I might have what you need. Tatenda Mapesa, personally, I think the best way we can do this is to make sure that we do proper change management before anything else. I think I'll leave that for Mr. Adibayo. That's his favorite topic, to get back on that. And Refilwe says 100% yes, resistance technology is a major problem. Absolutely, Refilwe. Kala Letebele, lack of consistent technical support can result in resistance for teachers wanting to integrate ICT into learning. Very, very good comments. I very much appreciate your time, your submissions, and let's keep the comments coming. What I love about this, that information stays on the platform and others can come and view that. We're making this our Africa classroom where we discuss this and we see what could Tatenda be doing that Refugio needs to learn. So Adibayo, please tell us, where do you see that? I think I love the lack of consistent technical support, which makes our teachers very resistant to wanting to integrate ICT. Is that a valid point? Do you truly think that that's what our teachers are facing?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, um, so I'll give some examples. Like currently, what we do at EasyDigi, we're working with schools, and then and we visit them. And so the teachers are excited. Apart from the fact that we have a structure that monitors their weekly stuff, what they do, trying to get some data, trying to understand what is working, and I'll come to that later too as well. Right. So because some feedback is very important. If you want to bring in technology into your system, you need to be able to measure what it's doing for you. Is very, very critical, right? So that you can be able to tell from time to time, what is working and what is not working, right?
Yes.
So you need to bring in technology, with an agile perspective, right? So it means that, every week you want to sit back again with your team, and you want to, because you don't give technology that chance. Don't You need to come back every week and sit with it again and say, what has happened with technology? What has happened this week? How has things evolved? How are the learners responding? What is exactly that aspect that is working, right? So, and I've discovered that this weekly stuff, because it's a project, I want to see it as a project, right? So this weekly interface, and providing
Yep.
that support and ensuring that anytime anyone has any problem, like they can have that personalized attention and that personalized, support. Teachers are really excited about it. I've seen teachers flourish
Yeah.
and do great because of that kind of provision, right? So we know that right now in Africa, we need that kind of system. We need that kind of support that
Yeah.
ensures that whenever they have any question, of course, two things, right? The digital support, and then the human support. The digital support will be a platform, like I said,
Yes.
where certain informations and things that they can refer to part time are there for them to feed on, and then a human support, human personnel, that can engage them and ensure that any challenge that comes on anytime is solved real quick.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and one of the things, Mr. Admayo, and our audience, I love emphasizing on is we're not looking for a quick fix. This is not something that we're going to fix overnight. This is a journey. It's a journey. And the most important thing is, let's get on it. Let's start. We can't move Africa forward if we keep sitting on the fence. This sort of we're interacting with others, and obviously, especially this day and age where we have all these platforms in place, as long as we have access to internet, technology can be intimidating even to tech savvy people. I think our biggest thing that we truly love exploring is AI, and it's getting to a point where every day there's something you're not catching up. I'm sure you're not catching
Yeah.
up, just like yeah. So think about that. Yet we've been in tech space for quite some years. Now we're expecting a teacher to focus on, they're doing lesson plan, they're focusing, they have deadlines to meet, they're expected to perform well, especially in Africa where we measure progress with how kids do in class. It's about the pass mark, which that's a conversation that will be coming soon, where we want to discuss and see, is there any other methods of assessment, or we have to keep on doing this, which is putting our teachers under so much pressure that even when we want to talk about this professional development, teachers need to keep on getting skilled. How often are we able to do that? Good to see you. I can see we still have more guests. We have Kala Litebele. Yes, I like your suggestion. Gerard Feinstein, good ideas. Need to cost technical and college education at no cost. Check out planetstartup.org in Africa. Great, I've heard about them. That is actually helping many learn and start their own companies. Absolutely brilliant. We are here discussing challenges we have within our education system in Africa. having the youngest, we have the youngest continent with the most unemployed youth, and we are the second continent that spends the biggest budgets in education. So as we get into this, we dive into this, we may not have all the answers, but if we can inspire a few people to get into that, like talk to planetstartup.org, talk to, we have Robert Grover, who is doing some amazing work. We have, I've seen a lot of people within the EdTech ecosystem in Botswana that are every day are trying to push and see some progress. Khalid Hunt, I will update you soon for my project before I travel to UNESCO. Thank you, Khalid. We're looking forward to having that conversation. We have Tanja. Greetings from Gabs. Awesome. I'm so excited to see a lot of people from Gabs today. We need interventions based on research and evidence to be picked up by policymakers. And I'd love to update you all. I am waiting to get the final approval from ADEA, from the platform we've created. ADEA is one of the most amazing organizations we have in Africa that's doing a lot of work on research in Africa. They have documented a lot of great information where they did their research within, they sampled 10 African countries. So sometimes it's where we're talking about if this information is not shared widely, we will keep on trying to figure out how can this be done. And soon we'll have one person from ADEA come and tell us about the awesome work they're doing and the best practices they've seen in different spaces. And yes, I agree with Adebayo. What works in this class may not work in the next one, but at least if we can try not to be way far off and see to it that there's still some great progress being done, I think we're getting somewhere. We are resolving this sort of huge nightmare we're calling technology integration in the classroom constantly. Teachers want to know how can they get on it, what are the best practices, which is the easiest way. My own testimonial, I'll wait for Adbio to bring his up. I've worked extensively with marginalized communities, and what was quite amazing is to see how you introduce this to teachers. They warm up, they're willing to learn, and they're willing to make their classrooms easy, happy, warm environments for their kids. The attitude is amazing. They're keen listeners. Obviously, we don't bring the student into this conversation because students, you just strap your finger, they got it. They're keen, they're quick to learn. I feel it's so much to do with the cultural integration, the introduction to it, a lot of training, upskilling them. And of course, as we skill them, I agree, we're very innovative. We try to work with projectors, but we also know there are situations that even getting access to that internet or getting access to those projectors. However, it can be done, it's getting done, and we have to keep on with that spirit. We have to keep at it. So Adibayo, within your space where you found yourself encountering, here I am, internet is not working or it's not there, how did you save the day? What did you come up with? We're talking about constantly, we're put on the forefront as problem solvers. We don't say the class will be run, we get things going.
Hmm.
Please
Yeah,
tell us
yeah,
as we get to the end of the session, what can you advise the audience? What do we do when these are not there?
yeah. So of course, the first step to solving a problem is to define the problem. So if you are in a situation where what it looks like, maybe you sort of you don't have everything you need, so to say. Um, so let's again, these kind of questions are very complex because you want to connect that question with various context, right? But then if you are a teacher that has at least just a smartphone, right? You can do a lot of magic. You can do a lot of magic. So again, we're looking at numbers. How many students do you have in your classroom? When we begin to bring in all those factors, you want to think, then how do we solve the problem? But the point is that irrespective of the situation and what you have available, right? So everything still rises and falls on you as the educator, right? And being able to bring in a level of creativity, right, to salvage the situation, right? So there are always ideas, and that's one of the things. That's one of the things of this program that's going to be happening every Tuesday, right? So you are going to hear people who have done practical things in these same instances, what they have done and how it has worked, right? I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. There's a teacher in Lagos State, right? There's a teacher in Lagos State. She won a car from the Lagos State government, right? She won a car. What happened? So what happened was that right in her classroom, all she had in her classroom was just a smartphone, right? She didn't have an interactive board, or of course it's a government school, it's a public school, right?
Mhm.
So they call her teacher Shadi. She's on LinkedIn. So all she had was just a chalkboard, right? Chalkboard. So she used the chalk in her classroom. That was all she had, the chalkboard, and basically. But then Lagos State made tablets available for the public school teachers, and that's one great thing that Lagos State has done, right? So teachers have a tab that they work with all their content, right? They are just right there in the tab, right? So whatever it is they're going to be teaching for the day is right there in the tab, right? So and then she has a lot of kids that she has to work with. But then
Yes.
there's this thing she does that is very interesting. She brings a lot of music, singing, trying to carry the kids along, with that kind of feel. And you see that, um, you know, um, the things you learn through music, they stick better than the things you learn through words, right? So that kind of stuff, right? So the kids are loving the experience, they enjoy it a lot. She does things like recording them when they do some activities and all of that. So the class is interesting, and that was how one of our videos, just went on social media, and people started liking it, and the video just went viral in Lagos State and in Nigeria. And that was how Lagos State government saw her. That, oh, you mean you are doing this in that's your classroom? And that was how she was invited for an award, and she got a car, she won a car, and all of that. So my question is, where was so we say there's no money, we say there are no so you see, in Africa our context is quite different, but then there was a car available for her at the end of the day. So if you look at the value of that car can buy so many things in that classroom. But then just to say that
Yeah.
we can be creative, there are so many things that we can do. I do not think that we are limited at any time. I don't think.
No. No, absolutely, Mr. Adibayo. I've found myself in a lot of those situations where sometimes we go to schools, of course, with our own technology, but sometimes even your own tech fails. And obviously, kids are always eager to learn. Kids are just awesome. They're always happy, and you have to think on your feet and come up with a way. And then whatever solution you've come up with, and especially smartphone always saves the day, or the use of recycled materials. We extensively emphasize on you can make your classroom fun. You may not have all the tech gadgets, but can we just see to it that we've changed that environment, that kids are looking forward to going to school? Thank you so much. This has been lovely. This has been awesome. Please note, this is going to happen every Tuesday. And if you have something special to share, you want to come on board as our next speaker, we're doing our speakers lineup. And yes, I've seen a lot of questions on will this recording be available? Yes, it will be available on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and it's also available on Facebook or Facebook pages. We have a lot of resources. Some we have them for free, especially ebooks. We have these awesome books. I hope you're able to see my maths books. We specialize on STEAM education, so we have a lot of books on English, maths, storytelling, and would love to send you to our website, which is www.edustoreafrica.com, and especially where you have systems in place for you to access e-learning materials. We're happy to share that, and we could also drop a link on this platform. We want to keep on having these engaging conversations. I'll have Adibayo give us your parting shot. And apologies to our two guests. I'm not very sure our system failed to onboard you, or some technical issue happened, but I will schedule and have you on board for our next week, same type session. What's your parting shot? What would you like to tell educators, ambassadors of goodwill? I've seen a lot online who are concerned about the plight of education in Africa.
Yeah, so I think that we are on the right track, but I'm just going to encourage educators across Africa. One thing you have probably not done is that you have not networked enough, right? I know you might have heard about LinkedIn, but I tell you, it's not a platform that you want to joke with, right? It's a platform you need to come to often, right? Because every time you come to LinkedIn, you can see educators doing things across the world, and you put yourself in a place where you are seeing what is possible part time, right? So, and the more you see what is possible, the more you are inspired, right, to know what to do, right? The challenges you face in your classrooms, they are not totally peculiar to you, right? So there are case studies that does exist across the globe. There are people that are going through the same thing that you are going through in that classroom, in that school setting, right? So you want to just keep networking. You want to just keep coming around and checking around what's happening. You want to make sure you attend meetings like this, right, to see the trending conversations, to see how insights, and of course ideas are shared, as regards how to move things forward, and how to equip you, right? If it's about knowledge, I think the knowledge is available. If it's about insight, the insights are available. Everything is available for you, right? You just need to be at the right place at the right time, and then keep getting the inspiration you need, keep getting the motivation and the ideas you need, and and together we can move things forward in Africa. We can move the education frontiers forward in Africa. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm not sure if Miss Kim will be able to um, return to the session. But it's been a nice time. Thank you everyone that engaged in the chat box. Thank you for all your comments. We're going to keep having this every Tuesday. The recordings are available. You can listen to it on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook. Thank you everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining. Let's connect and see you soon. See you next Tuesday. Bye.